Welcome back to the Case File. Today I'm going to tell you about a chilling and mysterious crime that took place in Chifeng City, Haote, part of the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region in China. This case happened in January 2024 and sent shockwaves throughout Chinese media because of its series of unexpected and bizarre twists. What makes it even more terrifying is that the perpetrator turned out to be someone with an extraordinarily high IQ and a terrifying ability to plan. The victims, without exaggeration, were nothing more than pawns in his cruel game to fully capture. The details of this gripping case, our editor stayed up all night, compiling over 7,800 words filled with shocking revelations right up to the very end. So now let me take you deep into the heart of this investigation. It all began on January the 2nd, 2024, around 4 p.m., when the Chifeng Haote City Police Department received an emergency call from a man. His voice was frantic and trembling, and he said, "Hello, police. My sister has been murdered. The killer stabbed her multiple times. Her name is Shui Bing. She lives in Jiaji town. Please send investigators immediately, right now." Just 10 minutes after receiving the emergency call, the investigation team arrived at the scene. By the time they got there, the house where the murder had just occurred was already surrounded by curious neighbors, all whispering anxiously. The police conducted a preliminary examination and found the victim was a woman around 50 years old, named Shui Bing. When the forensic doctor arrived to examine the body, it was confirmed that Shui Bing had been stabbed multiple times, her entire body soaked in blood. The scene was horrifying. The murder had taken place in the bedroom. The bedsheets and pillows were stained deep red. It was a disturbing and graphic sight. According to initial estimates, the time of death was around 3 p.m. That same day, the blood was still wet and the body was still warm when discovered. The person who made the emergency call was the victim's younger brother, Zhang Yutai. His house was only about 100 meters away from Shui Bing's, making them practically next door. Neighbors, Mr. Zhang explained that earlier that morning, while he was working, he received a sudden call from his nephew, Shui Bing's youngest son, named Wang Jing. The boy asked him to stop by and check on his mother. Feeling concerned, Mr. Zhang immediately rushed over to his sister's house, but what he walked into was unimaginable, a brutal, bloody murder scene. His sister had been savagely killed. Shui Bing, at 50 years old, was not someone you'd expect to end up in such a violent situation, and no one could understand why anyone would attack her with such viciousness. After searching the entire house, police noticed signs of ransacking, especially in the wardrobe and drawers, suggesting a possible robbery. They also found a blood-stained jacket lying in the living room and a pair of men's sneakers, also covered in blood. However, according to neighbors, Shui Bing was home alone at the time, so whose jacket and shoes were those? Could the killer really have been so careless as to leave their own belongings behind? Police then carefully examined all the windows and the front door, but there were no signs of forced entry, no scratches, no prying marks. This led them to a chilling conclusion. The killer likely entered the house naturally, as if they were someone Shui Bing knew and trusted. After gathering the initial clues, the investigation team continued examining the crime scene and interviewing those involved, including Zhang Yutai, the man who had reported the crime. Mr. Zhang Yutai explained that his sister's family consisted of 4 people: her husband, Wang Ta, 55 years old, their daughter Wang Jing, 26, and their youngest son Wang Jing, 22. He added, "My sister's family has always been decent and kind, often helping others. Bing herself was gentle and never had conflicts with anyone. If there was anyone likely to get into disputes, it would probably be her husband, Wang Ta. He works in construction, so he sometimes gets into fierce competition with others. But my sister, she spent her days cooking and taking care of the household. She didn't have enemies. What's strange is today, her youngest son Jing called me and asked me to go check on his mom. I felt something was off. Maybe there's something more going on behind the scenes. But now that he's back home, maybe the police will be able to get more clarity when they question him." While the police were still combing through the crime scene, the victim's 2 children arrived home. Upon seeing their mother lying motionless in a pool of blood, They burst into tears and tried to rush toward her, but the investigators held them back. The forensic team was still collecting evidence. Every tiny detail could be the key to identifying the killer. The siblings could only stand at a distance, silently watching their mother's lifeless body with overwhelming grief. Accompanying them was a young man, Zhang Lin, who was Wang Jing's boyfriend. Though the two weren't officially married, the pain he showed was no different from that of a family member. A heavy cloud of sorrow hung over the house, once peaceful, now transformed into the scene of a chilling and tragic murder. After calming the three down, the police began taking statements. The first question: why did Wang Jing ask his uncle, Zhang Yutai, to check on his mother? Wang Jing was the first to speak. She said that around 11 a.m. that day, while working at her office, she received a strange message from a man named Zhang Bing. The message was short and cryptic. The game has just begun. At first, she thought it was either a wrong number or someone playing a prank. Zhang Bing had visited her house a few times before. He worked at the local traffic police department and was also a business partner of her father, Wang Ta, who was a construction contractor. Zhang Bing also knew her cousin, Xue Ru, and Xue Ru's husband, Wang Jun. But about 20 minutes later, Wang Jing received a second message. This time, it was no joke. Your father, Wang Ta, is in my hands. Prepare 1 million yuan or he dies. Do not contact the police. Attached was a bank account number for the transfer. Panicked, Wang Jing tried to call her father but couldn't reach him. With no other choice, she took emergency leave and rushed home to check. When she arrived, only her mother, Mrs. Bing, and her younger brother, Wang Jing, were there. Both confirmed that Mr. Wang had gone out that morning to meet with a business associate. Still overwhelmed with fear, Wang Jing called the kidnapper again. He replied with an address, Jiaku Park, and told her to bring the money there. She and her brother quickly gathered the money and rushed to the meeting spot, but when they arrived, no one answered the phone. Then another chilling message came in. Your cousin Xue Ru and her husband Wang Jun are also in my hands. I need more money now. At the same time, Zhang Lin, Wang Jing's boyfriend, also texted her, saying the same man had contacted him, claiming Wang Ta had been kidnapped, and instructing him to go to Jiaku Park to deliver ransom money as well. Things were growing increasingly bizarre. What started as a suspected kidnapping now involved multiple alleged victims, yet no one could confirm their whereabouts. What raised the siblings' suspicions the most was their mother, Mrs. Bing. Normally, she was the type to constantly call and check in if anything unusual happened. But today, she was completely silent. Sensing something was wrong, Wang Jing decided to call home. No one picked up. With a growing sense of dread, he called their uncle, Zhang Yutai, who lived just down the street. He asked him to go over and check on their mother. But no one expected what Uncle Zhang would find: Mrs. Bing's lifeless body, brutally murdered in her own bedroom. At that moment, the police realized this was no ordinary case. It was far too complex, riddled with contradictions. From the start, the information Wang Jing had given seemed suspicious. What kind of kidnapper would use a phone number registered under their real name to send ransom messages? And to top it off, the bank account he provided was also under his own name. It was almost as if he wanted to be caught. Even stranger, the man behind the messages, Zhang Bing, was a familiar face to the family. How could one person alone kidnap 3 different people at once? The police began to suspect that this wasn't the work of a lone wolf, but rather a group. Or perhaps Zhang Bing had targeted each victim separately in a calculated plan. Most chilling of all was the fact that Mrs. Bing was murdered right when Wang Jing and Wang Jing weren't home. That suggested the killer had planned everything in advance. The lack of forced entry also hinted that the victim likely knew the perpetrator. Could Zhang Bing have lured Wang Ting and Wang Jing out of the house on purpose, just so he could return and kill their mother? With all these mounting questions, Zhang Bing quickly became the prime suspect in the case. The police immediately split into 2 investigative teams. One team remained at the crime scene to continue forensic analysis, while the other began digging into the true identity of Zhang Bing and launched a search for the 3 individuals reported missing. The findings shocked everyone. Zhang Bing was not a traffic police officer. as he had claimed. In reality, he was a drifter with no stable employment, living alone in the city of Zilin Gol League. With this new revelation, authorities launched a large-scale manhunt. Once they obtained a photo of the suspect, investigators canvassed neighborhoods, checked hotel guest logs, traced surveillance footage, and dispatched officers to train stations in case he tried to flee the city. During a review of CCTV footage, near the crime scene, Zhang Bing was spotted walking down a street just 100 meters from Mrs. Bing's house. This sighting strongly reinforced suspicions that he was the killer. On January 4th, police received a lead. Zhang Bing was reportedly staying at a hotel in the city. The front desk confirmed he had checked in and had not yet checked out. A tactical team quickly assembled and stormed the room. What they found inside left the entire team stunned. On the bed lay a lifeless man. At first glance, they assumed it was Zhang Bing, but after a quick check, they discovered the body belonged to Wang Jun, who was Wang Jing's cousin. The autopsy revealed that Wang Jun had died around 9 a.m. on January 2nd, meaning he was killed before Mrs. Bing. Cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head, resulting in a fatal brain injury. The hotel room where his body was found had been rented under Zhang Bing's identity card. This confirmed what the threatening message had already implied. Zhang Bing had murdered Wang Jun. With 2 victims now confirmed dead, police grew increasingly anxious about the safety of the remaining 2 hostages, Xue Ru and Mr. Wang Ta, Wang Jing's father. Hotel staff told investigators that Zhang Bing had checked in at 8 a.m. on January 2nd, paid up front for 10 days, and explicitly requested not to be disturbed. It was clear that every part of his plan had been meticulously calculated, but the horror wasn't over yet. On January 5th, police made another chilling discovery. Zhang Bing had also rented a second hotel room just 50 meters away from the first. This time using a driver's license instead of his ID card. When officers entered the room, they were met with another gruesome scene. Xue Ru's lifeless body lay on the floor. The autopsy confirmed she had been killed by mechanical asphyxiation, strangled to death. There were no other injuries and no signs of sexual assault. The time of death was around 10 a.m. on January 2nd, just 1 hour after her husband had been murdered. At this point, Zhang Bing's cruel master plan had become terrifyingly clear. He killed Wang Jun at 9 a.m., murdered Xue Ru at 10 a.m., and took the life of Mrs. Bing around noon. 3 lives in a single day. Her cold-blooded operation, executed with chilling precision. Among the list of supposed kidnapping victims, only one name remained: Mr. Wang Ta, father of Wang Jing. Was he still alive, or had he already become the next victim in this horrifying chain of murders? By now, everyone understood the grim reality. The chances of Mr. Wang surviving were slim. The string of brutal killings had sent shockwaves through the entire city. People were gripped by both fear and fury, while many worried for their own safety. An equal number were outraged by the heartless violence of the killer. Citizens began actively pledging to report any leads that could help the police track down Zhang Bing. But at this moment, all anyone could do was wait for updates from the investigation team. The pressure on law enforcement was immense. Zhang Bing's photo was broadcast across every media channel, urging the public to stay alert. Police made a public appeal. Anyone who spotted the suspect should contact the nearest authorities immediately. The investigation continued to unfold. Police began collecting surveillance footage from cameras all across the city. At the same time, they launched a deeper probe into the social connections of each victim, hoping to find a key link. According to testimonies from Zhang Lin and Wang Jing, Mr. Wang Ta, Wang Jun, and Xue Ru had recently teamed up to bid on a major highway construction project. They had reportedly met Zhang Bing during negotiations related to that very deal. However, Wang Jing revealed a critical detail. It was her boyfriend, Zhang Lin, who had introduced Zhang Bing to her father, Mr. Wang Ta. That meant Zhang Lin himself had also been deceived about Zhang Bing's identity, believing he was a traffic police officer. This raised a disturbing question. Had Zhang Bing been hired to kill the 3 of them over business disputes tied to the project bidding? But if this was simply about financial gain or rivalry, why was Mrs. Bing who had no involvement whatsoever, murdered so savagely. Jiang Bing used to be close with the victims. So what changed? What drove him to betray them and carry out such a brutal killing spree? These questions could only be answered once Jiang Bing was caught and brought to justice. After days of relentless investigation, a breakthrough finally came on the morning of April 10th. A taxi driver unexpectedly reported that he had recently transported a man who closely resembled Jiang Bing to Beijing. Footage from the vehicle's onboard camera confirmed the passenger was indeed Jiang Bing. Immediately, Inner Mongolia police contacted authorities in Beijing and dispatched a specialized task force to coordinate the suspect's capture. With local support, officers were able to pinpoint the location where Jiang Bing had been hiding. However, by the time they raided the room, Jiang Bing had already fled. The only things left behind were a few medical items, iodine solution and bandages, strong indicators that he was either tending to an injury or preparing for a prolonged escape. Beijing, with its massive population and chaotic traffic, posed a significant challenge. If Jiang Bing chose to disappear into the city, tracking him down would be incredibly difficult. As a result, police forces from Inner Mongolia, Beijing, and Hebei decided to join forces and tighten the net from 3 directions, determined to leave no room for escape. Meanwhile, traffic surveillance systems on major roads continued operating at full capacity. Eventually, they detected Jiang Bing aboard a taxi heading northeast. Authorities believed he was trying to flee toward a border region. An emergency manhunt was immediately issued, and northeastern provinces, along with border security forces, were alerted and ordered to intercept him at all costs. At this critical moment, Jiang Lin, boyfriend of Wang Jing, suddenly provided a vital piece of information. He claimed that Jiang Bing was carrying a dangerous weapon and urged law enforcement to exercise extreme caution when approaching him. Although not yet married to Wang Jing, Jiang Lin was deeply involved in the tragedy that had devastated her family. He stayed closely updated on the investigation and worked actively with authorities to help track down the killer. Upon receiving Jiang Lin's warning, the entire police force was instructed to equip themselves fully and prepare for any unexpected developments. Officers quietly tailed the taxi carrying the suspect, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to act. All while ensuring the safety of the driver. Finally, at 2 a.m. on April 16th, surveillance cameras at a highway toll station captured Jiang Bing fast asleep in the back seat of the taxi. It was a golden opportunity. As the vehicle came to a stop, officers moved in swiftly. The operation was executed flawlessly. The cold-blooded killer was apprehended without incident. What shocked everyone was that Jiang Bing offered no resistance. He accepted his arrest with eerie calmness, as if he had known all along that this day would come. He was immediately escorted back to Inner Mongolia, where he would face further interrogation and the harshest punishment under the law. During questioning, Jiang Bing confessed to everything without hesitation. He claimed that all of the murders had been planned and carried out by him alone. No one else was involved. But this insistence only deepened the investigators' suspicions. It seemed he was protecting someone, perhaps someone who had manipulated or coerced him into committing the crimes. Why was he so adamant about acting alone? The mystery pushed investigators to dig deeper into his motives and mental state. When asked why he committed the murders, Jiang Bing gave a cryptic response. "I've already avenged my girlfriend." The entire interrogation team was stunned. Who was Jiang Bing's girlfriend, and what did she have to do with the victims? When asked about the whereabouts of Wang Ji, the last missing victim, Jiang Bing coldly admitted that he had also murdered him. He claimed to have burned the body using gasoline in an abandoned field. By the time police arrived, only ashes remained. There was no doubt now. All 3 kidnap victims had been murdered on the morning of January 2nd, each killed at a different hour. And Jiang Bing had executed them all by himself, or so he claimed. Back in the interrogation room, Jiang Bing finally revealed the name of his girlfriend. Her name was Xiao Lan, a Chinese-American woman he had met 2 years earlier, online. The two had never met in person. Xiao Lan was reportedly living in the United States. According to Jiang Bing, she told him that her family had once been extremely wealthy in China. but suffered a tragic downfall. Her father was imprisoned and her mother died of illness. With no family left, she said Zhang Bing was now her only support. Xiaolan also told him that her parents had left behind a large inheritance in China, an inheritance that, she claimed, was being targeted by the family of Wang Ji, along with Wang Jun and his wife, Xue Ru. To protect her legacy, Xiaolan promised Zhang Bing she would return to China on January 30th to claim the assets and finally meet him in person. But when the date came, Xiaolan vanished. Zhang Bing tried to call, text, and reach her online, but got no response. Growing desperate, he became convinced that the Wang family had kidnapped or even killed Xiaolan in order to steal her inheritance. Zhang Bing's original intention was simply to find his missing girlfriend. On the morning of January the 2nd at 7 a.m., he arranged to meet Wang Ji in a field on the outskirts of the city under the pretense of inspecting a potential highway project. But as soon as Wang Ji arrived, Zhang Bing subdued him and began interrogating him about Xiaolan's whereabouts. Wang Ta, however, had no idea who she was. Enraged, Zhang Bing stabbed him multiple times, then doused the body in gasoline and set it ablaze right there in the field. At that moment, Zhang Bing believed he had crossed a point of no return. He thought, "I've already killed someone. I'm going to be executed anyway." And so he began a blood-soaked killing spree. Around 8 a.m., Zhang Bing sent a message to Wang Jun, another man involved in the same project, inviting him to meet at a hotel. Zhang had already prepared a metal rod. The moment Wang Jun stepped into the room, Zhang struck him violently on the head, killing him instantly. He then paid for the hotel room for several days in advance, placed a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, and took the next step. This time, he impersonated Wang Jun by using his phone to text his wife, Xue Ru, arranging a meeting at a nearby hotel just 50 meters away. At 9:30 a.m., Xue Ru arrived at the location, completely unaware of the danger. As she entered the room, Zhang Bing crept up behind her and strangled her to death. By 11 a.m., Zhang headed to Wang Ji's home. Inside were Mrs. Wang, his wife, and their son, Wang Jing. Zhang realized that attacking them both would be difficult, so he tricked them instead. He sent a message claiming that Wang Ji was being held hostage and instructed Wang Jing and his sister Wang Jing to leave the house and come alone. As soon as they stepped out, Zhang Bing returned and brutally stabbed Mrs. Wang multiple times before she could even scream. After the murder, he ransacked the home in search of valuables. Blood stained his clothes, so he left behind his jacket and shoes at the scene before fleeing. These very items, his jacket and shoes, would later become key pieces of evidence, leading police to identify and track the killer. Zhang Bing's ultimate goal was to find Xiaolan. He believed he had eliminated everyone who posed a threat to the woman he loved. But even after arriving in Beijing, he still couldn't find any trace of her. With nothing left to lose, Zhang chose to wait, calmly, for the police to catch him. Contrary to initial fears, when the officers closed in, Zhang Bing was not carrying any firearms, offered no resistance, and fully cooperated with authorities. After hearing Zhang Bing confess to the entire motive and timeline of his crimes, siblings Wang Jing and Wang Jing, who had just lost nearly their entire family, were overcome with rage. They simply could not accept Zhang's explanation. Wang Jing angrily stated that her family had never known anyone named Xiaolan, let alone conspired to steal assets from a complete stranger. She declared that every accusation Zhang Bing made was fabricated and completely baseless. But the police began to hesitate. Zhang Bing's account of the murders, the times, locations, actions, matched the crime scenes in chilling detail. Not a single part of his statement contradicted the forensic evidence. It was all accurate. So now the question was, could his story about Xiaolan actually be true? Was Zhang Bing lying, or was Wang Jing's family hiding something? Investigators realized that the only way to uncover the truth was to find the real identity of the woman called Xiaolan. But that would be harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Zhang had only ever interacted with Xiaolan online. He had no real photo of her, no address, no ID number, nothing. Every piece of information could have been fake. So now a new mystery loomed over the case. Did Xiaolan ever really exist? Just when the investigation seemed to be hitting a dead end, a new name suddenly came up during an internal police meeting: Zhang Lin, Wang Jing's boyfriend. Some detectives had already begun noticing some strange behavior from Zhang Lin. The first red flag was something Wang Jing had said herself. Zhang Lin was the one who introduced Zhang Bing to her family during a casual party. Zhang Lin had even claimed that Zhang Bing worked at the Department of Transportation. If they were truly friends, wouldn't Zhang Lin have known that Zhang Bing was using a fake identity? Or did he know and still introduced him anyway? Secondly, during the manhunt for the killer, Zhang Lin showed an unusual level of interest in every single clue the police uncovered. He followed the investigation closely, almost like he was part of the task force himself. Even Wang Jing and Wang Jing, the actual family members of the victims, didn't show such eagerness. So the question was Zhang Lin genuinely trying to help the investigation, or did he have a hidden motive? Thirdly, during the operation to capture Zhang Bing at the highway toll booth, it was Zhang Lin who warned police that Zhang Bing might be armed with a dangerous weapon. But when officers searched him, Zhang Bing wasn't carrying anything. In fact, he later claimed he had never even used a weapon at all. So, how did Zhang Lin come up with that information? And more importantly, why would he deliberately give false intel? Another odd moment came after the murder of Wang Jing's mother, Mrs. Wang. At the crime scene, Zhang Lin broke down in tears, crying uncontrollably, almost as if he had lost his own mother. Meanwhile, Wang Jing herself remained composed, despite her grief. Some investigators quietly noted that Zhang Lin's display seemed performative. Was he crying to gain sympathy from his girlfriend, or to distract everyone from something far darker? With so many red flags piling up, the investigation team made a bold decision: to place Zhang Lin under covert surveillance. Without alerting him, they brought Wang Jing in for questioning. To their surprise, she didn't try to defend her boyfriend. Instead, she cooperated fully and shared everything she knew. According to Wang Jing, Zhang Lin had always claimed to work for the Inner Mongolia Department of Transportation Police. He was the one who organized the dinner party that introduced Zhang Bing to her family, presenting him as a close friend. Since then, Zhang Bing and Zhang Lin had become like brothers, frequently visiting each other. But that raised another disturbing question. If the two were so close, how could Zhang Lin not know about Zhang Bing's criminal past? Or worse, had he known all along? To verify his identity, officers contacted the Inner Mongolia Traffic Police Department. The reply left the entire team stunned. There is no one named Zhang Lin working here. It was official. Zhang Lin had lied to his girlfriend, her entire family, and possibly even the police. Wang Jing was devastated. She couldn't believe that the man she had loved so deeply was in reality a conman, and possibly linked to the brutal murder of her parents. Investigators quickly began re-examining Zhang Lin's recent movements. When they reviewed traffic surveillance footage from January 1st, they discovered that a car registered under Zhang Lin's name had passed through a highway toll station. But the person behind the wheel wasn't Zhang Lin, it was Zhang Bing. This revelation confirmed that Zhang Bing had borrowed Zhang Lin's car to buy gasoline, and just one day later, a horrifying massacre took place. This discovery pushed investigators to suspect that Zhang Lin might have known about the crime in advance. He was immediately summoned for questioning. At first, Zhang Lin tried to maintain his composure. He dodged questions with vague, evasive answers, doing everything he could to distance himself from the crime. But when Wang Jing unexpectedly entered the interrogation room and directly exposed his lie about working for the traffic police department, his calm facade began to crack. The police then confronted him with surveillance footage that contradicted several parts of his statement. Cornered, Zhang Lin had no choice but to confess. He admitted that on the morning of January 2nd, he had gone to meet Zhang Bing to discuss a business matter. But instead, he walked in on Zhang Bing threatening Wang Tap, Wang Ting's father. When Zhang Bing noticed him, he turned and snarled, "If you say a word, you'll die just like him." Terrified, Zhang Lin said he froze. He didn't call the police, he didn't tell anyone. He stayed silent. But this raised another disturbing question. If Jiang Lin had truly witnessed such a horrific scene, why did he later send messages to Wang Jing and Wang Jing, urging them to go to Jiaku Park to look for their father? Was he trying to help, or was he leading them into a trap? As the detectives pressed harder, inconsistencies began surfacing in Jiang Lin's story. Eventually, the pressure broke him. What he confessed next was chilling. The entire crime had been premeditated, carefully planned by both Jiang Lin and Jiang Bing. But Jiang Lin had one objective from the start: make Jiang Bing take the fall. While he walked away clean, upon hearing this, Wang Jing could no longer recognize the man sitting across from her. This was the same man who once promised to marry her, and now he was calmly admitting that he had lied to her for months and helped orchestrate the murder of her entire family. It was later revealed that Wang Jing and Jiang Lin had already begun preparing for their wedding. All they were waiting for was an auspicious date. Thankfully, they hadn't yet tied the knot. Had they gone through with it, she would have become the wife of the man who destroyed her entire family. According to Jiang Lin's full statement, the entire relationship had been part of a larger scheme. From the very beginning, Jiang Lin had known that Wang Ji was involved in the construction business. That was the real reason he pursued Wang Jing, not out of love, but to gain the family's trust. Step by step, he embedded himself deeper into their lives, setting the stage for an elaborate scam. Jiang Lin fabricated an entire identity, claiming he worked for the Inner Mongolia Traffic Police Department and had close ties with high-level government officials. To make his story more convincing, he spread rumors about a massive highway project worth tens of millions of yuan. He didn't stop there. To earn the trust of Wang Ting's family, Jiang Lin convinced Jiang Bing to pose as a senior government official. He arranged formal dinners and networking meetings, creating the illusion of a man deeply connected in official circles. When everything seemed to be going smoothly, Jiang Lin escalated his scheme. He introduced the fictional highway project and told the family that if they wanted to win the construction contract, they'd need to grease some palms. According to him, with just 1 million yuan, he could handle the upper levels and guarantee them the winning bid. At first, Wang Tap, Wang Ting's father, Yi, was skeptical, but with his daughter about to marry Jiang Lin, his defenses lowered. The promise of high returns was tempting. Wang Ting's older sister, Shui Ru, and her husband, Wang Jun, were also seduced by the prospect of a lucrative deal. Eventually, the three of them, Wang Tap, Shui Ru, and Wang Jun, pooled together 1.7 million yuan and handed it all over to Jiang Lin. But instead of paving the way for any contract, Jiang Lin spent the entire sum living large, luxury. Hotels, fine dining, designer clothes, and gambling. In reality, he had no high-level connections. There was no highway project. He wasn't a government employee. He was an unemployed con man. In just a few weeks, the money was gone, and then the questions began. Wang Tap started pressing for updates on the project, progress reports, contacts, dates. The pressure mounted. Jiang Lin panicked. He knew that if his scam was exposed, he would face years behind bars. That's when the unthinkable happened. A cold-blooded and calculated plan began to take shape in his mind. If the people who knew the truth were gone, there would be no evidence, no witnesses, no one left to testify. He would be free, untouchable. But Jiang Lin wouldn't dirty his own hands. Instead, he turned to his old associate, Jiang Bing. Desperate, drowning in debt, and easily manipulated, Jiang Bing became the perfect pawn. Jiang Lin painted a picture of easy money, promised he would handle everything afterward, said no one would ever trace it back to them. Enticed by the promise of wealth, and with few options left, Jiang Bing agreed. And thus began a massacre, all born from lies, greed, and a conman's desperation to cover his tracks. In a chilling twist, it was revealed that the woman Jiang Bing had loved and trusted for over 2 years, Xiaolun, never existed. She was a fabrication. The entire persona was carefully crafted by none other than Jiang Lin. 2 years. Earlier, when the two men still worked together, Jiang Lin created a fake WeChat account using the name Xiaolan, posing as an attractive and gentle woman, He knew Zhang Bing's weaknesses: shy around women, desperate for love, but loyal. To a fault, that made him the perfect mark. Through the fake Xiaolan account, Zhang Lin would chat sweetly, make romantic promises, and pretend to care deeply. Over time, Zhang Bing fell completely under her spell. He believed he had finally found the love of his life, a woman who only existed in the digital shadows. Zhang Lin didn't stop at text messages. He even asked a female acquaintance to pose as Xiaolan in voice calls, further convincing Zhang Bing that the relationship was real. For over 2 years, Zhang Bing lived in a fantasy, yearning for a woman he had never once met in person, and Zhang Lin exploited it ruthlessly. Using the Xiaolan persona, Zhang Lin tricked Zhang Bing into sending him large amounts of money, always under the guise of helping her family or preparing for their future together. But the WeChat account wasn't just for swindling money. It became a psychological weapon, one Zhang Lin would deploy at will to manipulate Zhang Bing into doing anything he wanted. When the con against Wang Ting's family began to unravel, Zhang Lin took Xiaolan's identity a step further. He used her account to build up Zhang Bing's self-image, feeding him messages about being a powerful, successful man, deserving of respect. He crafted a narrative that would give Zhang Bing the confidence to deceive others as well. But when everything began to fall apart, Zhang Lin didn't hesitate. He turned Zhang Bing into a weapon. Through the Xiaolan account, Zhang Lin sent Zhang Bing a message laced with lies and emotional manipulation. "My love, my family is falling apart. My father has been arrested. My mother passed away alone in the US. I've lost everything, except you. After the funeral, I'll return to Beijing. My parents left me a massive inheritance, but Wang Tap's family is trying to steal it. I fear they'll take everything from me. I'm coming back to China on January 30th. We'll be together, but you must protect me from them." January 30th came. Xiaolan returned to China, but Zhang Lin, still pretending to be her, refused to answer any calls. Zhang Bing panicked. He began to believe something terrible had happened. In his twisted reality, he became convinced that Wang Tap's family had kidnapped or even killed Xiaolan for her inheritance. And then, Zhang Lin tightened the noose. He played on Zhang Bing's rage and grief, fueling delusions of betrayal and revenge. He made Zhang Bing believe they were the only two people who could fight back, two loyal allies against a common enemy. It worked. Under Zhang Lin's psychological control, Zhang Bing agreed to carry out a series of brutal murders, each one according to Zhang Lin's master plan. And perhaps the darkest part of all, when police eventually closed in on Zhang Bing, he was armed and ready to resist. When questioned, Zhang Lin admitted he had hoped for a shootout, one that would end in Zhang Bing's death. In death, Zhang Bing could not speak, he could not confess, and Zhang Lin would walk away clean. It was the perfect crime, if only it hadn't come undone. But Zhang Lin's so-called perfect plan only managed to delay the inevitable. To seasoned investigators, something didn't add up. As evidence piled up and witness statements began to converge, a darker truth emerged. Zhang Lin wasn't just a side character, he was the puppet master. He had manipulated every step of the way, hiding behind fake identities and carefully orchestrated lies. Using a deadly cocktail of truth and fiction, he brainwashed Zhang Bing, turning him from a lonely, lovesick man into a cold-blooded killer. In the end, Zhang Bing, once blinded by love for Xiaolan, became nothing more than a sharp blade wielded by Zhang Lin, the true architect of this horrifying chain of murders. But even as the truth was revealed and laid bare in court, Zhang Bing struggled to accept it. To him, Xiaolan was real. She had whispered love to him for 2 years. She had promised a future. She had called him late at night, cried, laughed, and now the police were telling him that none of it had been real, that she was nothing more than a voice, a screen, a script, a ghost. It was a devastating blow. And it was only then that Zhang Bing began to grasp the depth of the deception and just how fully Zhang Lin had manipulated his entire world. During the investigation and court proceedings, the scale of Zhang Lin's lies came into full focus. He had not only created false personas, or like Xiaolan, but also used charm and deception to con Wang Jing's family out of over 1.7 million yuan. He had pretended to be a government insider, staged fake business deals, and plotted murders to cover his tracks. At the trial in Inner Mongolia, Zhang Bing, the man who had carried out the killings of 4 victims, was sentenced to death. But Zhang Lin, though he never physically committed the murders himself, was judged as the mastermind behind them all, the one who manipulated, deceived, and ultimately orchestrated the entire scheme. For that, he too received the death penalty. This case serves as a haunting warning in our digital age that identity is fragile and that trust, when placed in the wrong hands, can lead to unspeakable tragedy. In a world where truth and lies are just a few keystrokes apart, the ability to think critically, to question, and to stay vigilant has never been more important. Because sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one holding the knife, it's the one pulling the strings. Thank you for watching. If you found this story gripping, disturbing, or thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. What would you have done in Zhang Bing's place? Could anyone have stopped this before it was too late? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe,